We're going to start with a song today, everybody.
Problem is all inside your head, she said to me.
Close your eyes and listen.
If you take it logically, I'd like to help you in your struggle to be free. There must be 50 ways to leave your lover. She said it's really not my habit to intrude. Furthermore, I hope my meaning won't be lost or misconstrued. But I'll repeat myself. At the risk of being crude, there must be
50 ways
50
to leave
ways
your
to leave your
lover.
lover.
50 ways to leave your lover. So slip off the jack. Make a new plan, Stan. Don't need to be coy, Roy.
Need to
Just
go,
listen
Roy.
free.
Just listen to me.
This is like so appropriate for everything
I know it
going
is.
on right now. Welcome,
Yes,
everybody,
yes, it
and
is.
thanks for playing that we started with a song today because
Love it.
there are 50 ways to leave your lover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
And they don't
Julie
have to
Murphy,
be
and welcome
dramatic.
to Awaken Your Relationships. And I am the money chick, and I do money, and we work things out and we act it out through our money, through our health, or through our relationships. And Rita is a relationship expert. Hello. And so
Hello.
when people screw up their money stuff, or if their money stuff is not where they want it to be, or it's exactly where they want to be, I start asking questions about how's your family life? How's your work life? Because we all as human beings process our emotions. The question is where are we acting them out and not actually processing through them? So hence, we do these awaken your relationships and awaken your spirit and awaken your work life, blah, 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 because I want to bring value to all of you. And we have to add the giggle to all this. That's why we started today with a song. We have to raise our vibrations because Rita and I were talking. There's a lot of toxic stuff going out there right now. Holy bejesus, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got women who are, my clients who are telling me that because they're doing the research, because they're like, oh my God, I need to leave. I need to get out of this. They're like, domestic violence is up 80%, and you can only imagine what's happening behind closed doors.
Right.
Lots of people are in toxic situations right now because there's this high stress level and nobody knows how to handle how they feel. And so they go to all sorts of the wrong ways. And many, many people are being victimized, emotionally victimized, physically victimized by their relationships, the people who are supposed to love them the most and that they're the most vulnerable to, the people who have the goods on them.
Yeah. And it's really fascinating. I had a minor version of this week. But I've had clients telling me recently about major things. Like, we're talking very highly educated, smart people who make a lot of income that they pulled up to drop their kids off at their former in-laws house. And this client was telling me that the new boyfriend, the former mother-in-law, and the ex-wife are videotaping, trying to catch him in something. And he's like, and they were provoking him the whole way on the ride on the phone to try to get whatever it is that they're trying to do. So the narcissism out there is like off the charts.
Off the charts. People are, like someone will leave. And like narcissistic relationships are, the lawsuits start coming, the slandering starts coming, and it's like we have children involved here. We have people involved here, real people. This isn't a game, but many people who've gotten away with behaving in toxic ways behind closed doors.
Right.
They're
the
now
line in my house was, if I could share, was whatever goes on in the house stays in the house. That was the line. That was the line that my former mother-in-law, while she was doing what she was doing, I'll just leave it at that. And that's what she trained her children on, was what goes on in the house stays in the house. And then I remember when my kids started repeating that to me, I was like, oh yeah, no, we talk about these things. I'm going to shine the light, and we're going to do it in a healthy manner, right? It's all about doing things in a healthy manner. But you can't do it in a healthy manner if your own nervous system's hijacked. This is why self-love and self-care, which is against almost every religion I know of, because you're supposed to give to others
Yeah.
before you give to yourself. But the problem is we have these hijacked nervous systems. And
Mhm.
when you've had enough so that you don't go into your patterning, you have to have the emotional space. And it's fascinating to me, Rita, almost every time you and I connect, you say, how are you doing emotionally? Like, how are you? Because, like, we have psychotherapists that help us with our head, we have physical therapists that help us with our bodies, but from like a emotional space, like, we really don't have. I guess some of the like, psychotherapy goes there, but um, there's not a lot of support out there for that, of how to process that in a healthy manner. It's really fascinating. And we just lost Rita for a little bit, but she'll be back on here. But it's really fascinating to me, everybody, that we do have this toxic energy that is like off the charts out there today. And what it's bringing up for people, if you can find the tools for your own nervous system, like Rita has taught us havening, right? So havening, just to reiterate for those who have never seen it, havening is one thing that you can do to calm your nervous system. And you can calm your nervous system. Rita, I was just telling them about havening and how that's one way that they can calm their nervous system that you've shared with us. So,
Mhm.
can you share? I would love for you to share. Periodically I make you do this, and I know you
Oh,
probably
I
feel
don't
like a broken
mind.
record,
No,
but it's been so
no.
useful to me and my children. My
Yeah.
my kids now are like, okay, mom, I know.
I told you, didn't I, when we first started working together? You're like, my kids will never do it. They'll resist, the whole way. And I'm like, no, once they start realizing, okay, so the last 10 to 15 years in nervous system and PTSD science has really had lots of breakthroughs. And the breakthroughs have shown that many traditional medicines or cultural medicines are actually very effective. And one of the biggest problems with holistic tools is that there's a lot of story around it. Like you can't just go
Mm-hmm.
to a Native American tribe and take all of their traditions, and then start using them because well, you're not Native American or you're not this or this is sacred, even if they work. So, what science has shown is this is how the body calms itself down. And
Right.
one of the fastest ways, ours was something called havening. And the last, 5 years ago, I remember running across havening like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it was for $10,000 for a 2-day workshop, only for psychologists who, had been experienced for, whatever. It was only for high level therapy. And
Right.
it's starting to come down into the mainstream. And it's very simple. Havening is calming your nervous system down, and so the first thing you do is you notice that you're stressed out. Let's say you're stressed out, so you go to the bathroom and you've got the door closed, you're hiding in the bathroom for a few minutes to get a break. You give your tension a number, something 0 to 10, because you're trying to train your brain that you have the ability to calm yourself down. So you give it a number, let's say I'm at 10, I'm at 11. And then we'll do this together. Think of something, Julie, that pushes your button lately. And then tell me on a 0 to 10 scale what
Attorneys
the
that
number
keep
is.
getting called.
Oh, no kidding. What's your stress number on that?
It's really interesting. It's actually come down a lot because I would say that I'm probably now like a 6 on it,
Okay.
because now I know how to stand in my power and not try to just defend myself all the time.
hmm Now, when the first lawsuits came, when you first started to get divorced, how did that make you feel? Like, what number were you then?
So on a scale from 1 to 10, I was a 50.
Yeah.
No, I was
Yeah.
off the charts because I've spent my whole life doing the right thing and showing up for people in the right way, that I couldn't even imagine that I was being treated like a criminal, because that's exactly how I was being treated. And
Yeah.
all these documents of these things, and he would say to me things like, well, you know what? This is what you wanted, so this is what you get. And that's just legal speak. It's not actually true. And I'd be like, why is it in there if it's not true? Like, my brain could not conceptualize because it wasn't a mental thing, it was an emotionally reactive thing. And I can see that all now. And, bless his heart, I can imagine. I can't even imagine, I wish him all the healing in the world. But yeah, I was off the charts. I was off the charts because
Mm-hmm.
I could not believe I had worked this hard and done everything right, and it was falling apart.
Right, right. And you were triggered from all of your biggest memories and fears from being a kid, from being molested as a kid, to
Everything. Yeah.
it all came out. And so when women
It
are
was like a
feeling that
zit that was
way,
about to pop.
oh yeah, nobody knows what to do except to eat or do drugs or, drink alcohol or shop more or, fight back or, all these things that don't work. Let me give people a
Yeah.
substitute.
I want them to hear that. They don't work.
They don't work. They
They
do
don't
not
work.
work.
I've
Nope.
I've tried the fighting back. I've tried completely not talking at all. I have tried the in between. The only thing that works, and this is probably the number one way to leave your lover, is to work on yourself, which again, my brain could not conceptualize that early on. It's like, what? I have to work on myself and then it all fixes itself? It does. As crazy as that sounds, your only job, there's really actually probably not 50 ways to leave your lover. I mean, we could think of other logistical things, but really, you can leave the relationship, but the relationship doesn't leave you unless you work on yourself.
Right? It's in your head, it's in your body, it's in your life. You've got kids with this person, people, you like their mother or whatever.
Right? And it's it's
We
it's
have
not about anybody
connections.
else but you.
And even if they die, they're still with you. Even if you never see them again, they're still with you. And so you've got to get these hooks out of you. And the first way to start is to, whenever you feel stressed, go someplace where you have some privacy or some space and do havening. So you're at about a 6 for this latest thing going on this week. Now we're going to stroke our arms 20 times. That's it. Just
Mhm.
20 times, and I'll count. So you're at a 6. Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Can
Okay,
I
what
can I
number are
say
you at
something?
now?
Can I
Yeah.
say something? I want anyone. What popped in is when you first had me start doing these things. Um, I was so resistant, like, well, I don't know. And I remember the first time you had me do that. I want people to know that what popped in as you were just having me do that was that it's about you have to be willing to let your addiction to the drama and the cortisol flying through your system. And I was like, I don't have any addictions. Julie keeps a clean slate. I sometimes drink red wine. That's about it. Like I'm a clean slate. And but my addiction was I didn't realize that the cortisol pumping through my system was what physiologically I was addicted to. And that came out in participating in the drama and trying to prove myself and trying to show that I was okay. And I remember somebody saying to me going, Joel, don't do that. Don't do that. And I'm like, I don't know how to not do that. And all of a sudden I became aware of it. So for those of you who are trying that havening and you're seeing like you're resistant, you're like, when does this end? Or how else does it come up? Rita, how else have you seen that resistance come up for people?
Well, a lot of times if I'm not looking, they're rolling their eyes at me. I've had that happen. I've had clients come back like 6 months later and say, Rita, I love you. I've known you for 10 years. And when you were telling me about this and trying to convince me to do this, I was just rolling my eyes and you couldn't see me. And I'd be like, no, I knew you were rolling your eyes. So I was just being persistent. They won't take the suggestions. You'll be like, Okay, when you get off this, you need to take an hour and take some time for a walk, and you need to do some breath work, and you need to do some of these calming exercises. And, they wouldn't. Their
Right.
analytical mind would kick in. They'd think, our analytical mind says we need to problem solve this, we need to figure this out. But the problem isn't out there with somebody else. The problem is with how we feel. I'll give a good example. In the morning, our bodies produce cortisol to wake us up. So we wake up with cortisol in our system.
Yeah.
The things that I do in the morning is I have a little bit of dark chocolate because it brings down cortisol levels. So I keep dark chocolate next to my bed. I keep my vitamins nearby so that I take my vitamins even before I get out of bed many times, because it gives
Right.
me the nutrients that I need to reverse it. I get out of bed and I go for a walk to calm things down. Anxiety is very common in the morning because cortisol, our body uses cortisol to wake us up. And so when you start realizing that you're anxious, not because you're all screwed up, but you're anxious because your body is flooding you with cortisol, then you can start dealing with the real problem, with it
Right.
calming your nervous system down. It doesn't matter if somebody's the biggest, meanest, nastiest person out there. It does not matter, because if you aren't reacting to it, if your body isn't producing cortisol to it, you'll be
You can't
fine.
hook into the other person then, right?
Yes, exactly. And you're able to stay present. And when you're present, you can kind of take, like a Zen master, take a conversation where you want it to go, because the other
Right.
person's reacting and you're not. You're
Right.
physically, it's not that you're pretending not to react, it's that you physically are not feeling like you need to react.
I just had this conversation with one of my brothers this morning. We were talking about another one of our siblings. And he goes, I really feel bad for our other sibling. And I go, yeah, you know what? I go, I understand, because I've let go of that hook inside of me. Like, because if you keep doing your self love and self care, and some days you're going to feel like, I can't get there. I can't, like, what? Like, maybe you can't, like, get over. There's just one day when you consistently and regularly do your self love and self care, and you do the havening to calm your nervous system down, because you're switching a pattern that is engrooved in your brain. That's what you have to understand here. Like, this is why it repeats itself all the time. So as you're creating new patterns and you're repatterning your mind, there's one day that it just goes away, and the things that used to affect you, because you've shifted your inside, now your outside world all has to change.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my brother were talking this morning, and it's like, he will hit a point, the other sibling, where it just will be gone, because he's consistently and regularly doing the work, and the hook just won't be there, and it'll be like, like, I realize, I'm like going, well, I could take deep breaths again. It's been years since I've been able to take a deep breath.
Yeah, you've been
And that
traumatized.
feels amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
What
so you'll get
changed? What
there.
changed for me was I've always dealt with stress most of my life, and so my stomach would knot up, and I wouldn't be able
Mm.
to eat, which meant that every time, like it was Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, I'd be too stressed out. And my mom is a great baker, and she would make these homemade pecan rolls based on my dad's mother's recipe, and I could never eat them. I could never enjoy them.
Yeah.
Every holiday meal was pretty much ruined for me until I stopped being so reactive. And when I stopped being so reactive, I could enjoy what was happening around me
Mm.
instead of being in this place of constantly stressed out. I remember being places and looking at everybody else and saying, doesn't anybody else feel this way? Doesn't anybody else feel like they're about to jump out of their skin? Why am I the only one who feels this way?
Right.
And that's when you go to the
Yeah.
bathroom, and that's when you haven, and that's when you pull out your essential oils. Essential oils are great because they talk directly to your amygdala. And I don't
Thank
get like
God.
really, yeah, I don't get like really freaky about them. Like, oh my God, I have to use this one for this, and I have to have any scent. I'll open up a bag of coffee.
Right.
I'll go smell a cedar tree. Any
Right.
smell talks directly to your amygdala and starts to calm it down, especially if it's a natural smell. So
Mm-hmm.
essential oils are great for breaking that pattern, because it tells your body to start calming down. So I'll keep essential oils everywhere, in my bathroom, next to
Right.
my couch, at work, so that I'm walking by and I pick them up and I start smelling them,
My
because
kids
it
will tell
keeps
me,
me
"Mom, can you put
regulated.
those things in that thing and so it smells good in here?" Like they now know their body's reacting to it so well that they're now
Hmm.
asking for it.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
I have them, and if you don't know which one's the right one, all you got to do is smell it. And it's like, I have the kids just smell it and like which one resonates. Okay, this is the one your body needs. And
Hmm.
um,
I like the one that makes me go, oh, I love how this smells.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because as you say, it's what makes you happy. And so when you find the smell or smells that you like, even if you're just playing with them, it
Right,
makes you happy. And that's the shift. So in our bodies, we can be at a high level of arousal. But if we are at a high level of arousal and we have cortisol, then we're stressed out, we're
right,
angry, we're frustrated, we're
right,
overwhelmed. If we have a high level of arousal, but we have happy chemicals like serotonin flowing through us, then we
right.
love life. Life is beautiful. Oh my God, look at the rain. It's so perfect and so magnificent. And the only difference is whether you're releasing cortisol or serotonin. And
Yes.
so when you're releasing cortisol and you start smelling things that make you go, oh, I love how that smells,
Mm,
that starts making your body release the serotonin. Or if
totally.
you have a thought, if you're thinking, how am I going to figure this out? What am I going to do? Oh my God, I can't believe they did this to me. Why is this happening to me? They did it again. This is what I'm going to do next time. When you're in
Right.
that thought, your body's releasing cortisol.
Totally true.
When you're in
Totally
this
true.
thought, this is the mantra that I've been crafting over the last month or so. This is what it sounds like. And it's written to kind of be self-hypnotic. So it goes into your subconscious mind. I really love the thought that I consciously and perfectly create the exact amount of love, peace, joy, money, wealth, success, family, happy, compassion, care, connection, to flow through me and to me,
Mm,
to nourish myself and everyone around me. I really love that thought. So you
that's
can
awesome.
either think, why is this happening to me? Oh my God. And telling your body, release the cortisol, release the cortisol, release the
Right.
cortisol. Or you can say, you know what? I'm not going to let myself think that in this moment.
So that actually leads to another way to leave your lover. It's about
Hmm.
focus on the creation of what you want your life to be. And you're like, how is that directly related? So I had this whole situation where recently, and I was like, okay, yes, all of these things are true about today's reality. Yes, all of those things are happening. Pick it, right? Pick it from kids' school stuff with COVID and what's going on in society and whatever, the news, whatever. Okay, yes, all those things are happening. Yes, all these things are true. If we, to your point, if we keep focusing on these things that have already happened, yet they do need to be dealt with on some level, but I'm not trying to ignore them. But if you keep bringing that into the present moment, you're only going to keep recreating that. So, like, you get hooked into this past piece. And so, I'm really working with clients a lot these days in terms of, yes, this is happening at your employer. Yes, this is happening with your kids. Yes, this is happening. I go, you told me you want to create this. Is this changed? They're like, no. I'm like, can we focus on what you want to create as opposed to like, this is like noise. It's distraction. It's, like I remember when I set the intention with my ex-husband situation, I was like, I want the highest and best for me, my kids, and their dad. And would send gratitude every day in my meditations to him for giving me
And
four
doesn't
beautiful
that
babies.
feel better? And doesn't that feel better than thinking, why is he doing this to me again?
Oh, there's no doubt because well, and I just was like, and you don't know how those packages are going to show up. So one of the things that I find is a pattern with people is that because our brain doesn't understand how that can be created in our lives, whatever that dream is or desire is, we tend to then not put attention on it because our egoic mind doesn't know the how. So I would encourage everyone who's watching to let go of that how, because really focusing on what you really want to create is one of the best ways to leave your lover. Because and it and I know this may sound uncaring, but it's like, it doesn't matter what the other person is doing. It really doesn't. And it's just like, if you're true to yourself and you're showing up authentically and in your truth, and this is what you want to create, even if it's, I was challenged, like, what do I want to create, in my new relationship, right? And it's like, well, this is what I want to create. Well, this time around, all I'm doing is focusing on what I want to create as opposed to what the challenges are. I mean, the challenges are always going to be there, no matter what relationship you're ever in. There's always going to be a difference of opinion. There's always going to be, something that you're not going to agree on, and that's okay. But what do you want to create? So it's like, and it's interesting, as the boyfriend and I focus on that, more layers of healing continue to come up, because you don't realize how, oh, wow, what I want to create was based on these expectations, and expectations are not healthy in relationships. And so, oh, wow, I didn't realize that I communicated that kind of stuff in an expectation way. Right. So more and more awareness comes when you try to create the life that you truly want.
It's
And
like you get smarter. When you do this stuff, what happens is you become the smartest person in the room, because
yeah.
everybody else is running around reacting, either being in denial or getting
Right.
angry or disassociating or distracting themselves with, food or money or shopping or whatever. Everybody else is literally not present and not
Yeah.
in their right mind.
That's like
And when
another
you
10
walk
things,
in,
ways to leave your lover. Stop
oh
distracting
yeah.
yourself with food. Stop distracting yourself with alcohol. Stop distracting yourself with smoking. Stop distracting yourself with drama. Stop distracting. Like, we list them, right? There's
Mhm.
tons of things that we do to distract us from really focusing on what we really truly want to create.
But here's the cool thing. We can either, distraction's actually the key, because we're trying to break our addiction to being ourselves, our addiction to our old patterns and habits. And the way to do it is to give ourselves a life affirming, positive distraction. That's like what essential oils are
That's
for.
what you talked to me about sex, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
replace that old stuff from a nervous system perspective with the good stuff.
Yes, because the difference, as I said, the difference between whether something is great or something is horrible is whether you have cortisol you're pumping or whether you have serotonin. So you can have a high level of
It's
arousal and
true.
and have serotonin rushing through you, and it's going to be the best orgasmic experience you've ever had in your life.
She
You
told me this,
know?
and I thought she was a little nuts. I'm like, going, what? And then, yeah, it's absolutely true.
Oh, yeah, yeah, because now you're going from the sobbing or the pit of despair or the anxiety where your skin is crawling. When you're in fight or flight, all of your blood vessels shut down. They
Mm,
narrow,
right.
including the ones on the surface of your skin. And so your skin will start to feel tingly or start to feel uncomfortable or too tight. That's why people sweat when they get stressed out, because the blood vessels narrow on their skin, and so sweat is a natural, it's pushing
Yeah.
things out. So it's and when it happens consistently as a child, it tends to encourage things like fibromyalgia, tends to encourage things like, your body attacking itself, because it, like a metamorphic rock, being in a constant state of contraction, it shapes your body under heat and pressure, right? Just like a
Mm,
metamorphic rock is heat and pressure. So when you're under constant stress, your body's getting shaped and
right.
being changed and formed. And so we need to calm ourselves down, doing whatever we need to do that is life affirming, not something that'll get us in a hole. We
Right.
need to calm ourselves down as fast as possible so that
Right.
we can really see what's going on, so that we're not falling into our reaction.
Right. That's so true. That is so true. Um, I am amazed on how, when you decide that, because you may or may not leave your lover, but when
Mhm.
you decide to, that's when everything starts to change.
Right. It's about not having the addiction
Mm-hmm.
to that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's the addiction that keeps us. It's the chemical addiction to the cortisol and the stress chemicals that our body has that's been developed over years. If you keep taking heroin, you're going to become addicted to heroin.
Right.
If you keep pumping yourself full of stress chemicals, cortisol, you're going to become addicted to cortisol.
Right. Yep.
And you have to go
Do
cold
you think
turkey.
that, can I ask a question? Do you think
Yeah.
so I've watched people through the years, they have been addicted to other stuff. So they're addicted to alcohol, they're addicted to drugs, they're addicted to smoking, eating. When they master those and they're no longer in that addictive process, does it transfer to like cortisol addiction?
Yeah, but it all depends on how you
But
do
it's
it.
like a
A lot of
healthier
people,
addiction.
not really, because it's the thing
I
that's
know.
inside of yourself that you can't seem to control. Many
Oh
people,
my
when
God,
they,
you're so right. I'm having light bulbs go off in my head right now. I'm
oh,
like,
good, good.
what? Well,
Yeah.
because I've
So,
watched this with clients and I'm like going,
yeah.
what just happened to them? And I'm like,
Right.
because again, I'm not the relationship expert. I'm the money expert, but I know enough to like point these other things out and be like, okay, interesting.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that.
So, yeah, many people who have addictive problems, alcohol, sex, drugs, whatever, if they don't keep with their self-care and self-love program, whatever that looks like, could be becoming a Buddhist monk, could be a 12-step program, could be something. My in-laws have been involved with 12-step for decades now. Every place they've found the 12-step community because it's a lifestyle for them. If you don't stick with it and it becomes a lifestyle change, you just become what we know as a dry drunk.
Right.
You become someone who stopped drinking and just shifted their addiction to something else. So many people may say, I stopped drinking. Yes, but you
Now
became
you're
more
addicted to
emotionally
sugar and
abusive to your
candy. A lot of times I've
children.
seen so many alcoholics start
Hmm.
like drinking a ton of caffeine or they pop candy in their mouth all
Yeah.
day long.
Alcohol is a sugar addiction. And
Right.
the, the,
Right.
the most modern um, support or help for breaking alcohol addiction is to get people off of the sugar addiction first. If you can break the sugar addiction, then getting off of alcohol isn't as hard.
Right. Yeah.
So, I
I've
mean,
watched I've
there's all
watched that.
these, yeah. And so people can say that they're doing the right things, but if they're still behaving, if they're still emotionally addicted and they don't know it and they don't know how to break it, then they're going to keep reliving the same pattern over and over. You have to break the addiction with your body, with the chemicals that
In your
your
brain?
body is pumping out. Yep, in your brain, because I believe it's the hypothalamus that does it. I can't be sure. But every time you have those difficult thoughts, your hypothalamus potentially starts pumping out the cortisol into your body.
Right.
And so it's your thoughts that create the physical state inside of you. And if you allow yourself to think those thoughts and you don't take care of how you feel, like go for a walk, sniff your oils, listen to brainwave entrainment music, talk to a friend, if you don't do that, you're not actually changing it. You're not actually changing anything. You have to
Right.
change how you think and you have to change how you feel.
Right.
And that's how we break the addiction.
So true. Yeah, if you don't break your own addictions, all you're going to do, this is why people get divorced statistically more likely if you've been divorced already. And if you've been married twice, you're more likely to get divorced 3 times. And it's just because you're not breaking the cycles. You're not breaking the addictions.
You're not working it out within yourself and getting the support that you need. When people
Totally.
have problems with their money, many times it goes secret. They start hiding it.
Mm.
It gets, you get more and more debt. But when you start getting help and realizing there's systems out there and programs and people and different ways of thinking, it's just an error in our thinking. And we have to do the same thing with our relationships. Many women end up thinking, it's my fault. How can I control this? What am I doing wrong? How do I make them stop? The whole
Yeah,
focus
it has
is on
nothing,
stopping
again,
somebody
God,
else.
everything you just said is every line that has always gone through my head. Like, it's so real. And I know people who are watching this are going, yep, 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 yep.
Mhm.
And you really need to understand that it's not about the other person.
Yep. It's just your analytical mind coming up with stories to explain why your body feels so stressed out. I felt anxious most every morning of my life, and I didn't know it was because my body was pumping me full of cortisol to wake me up. I just would wake up
Yeah.
extremely stressed. But when I
Right.
realized that that's just what my body does, I could start to counteract it. Dark chocolate counteracts cortisol, exercise counteracts
Woohoo!
cortisol, tons of things counteract. Smelling essential oils counteract cortisol. And so if you deal with the physical problem, then you're not as bothered by what's going on around you. Somebody can say
Right.
something mean and nasty, and you're like, wow, they're having a bad day. I guess I'll stay away from them. You don't fall into it. You don't get trapped in that crazy magnetic drama attraction that's going on. Instead, like you've been doing, you step back, you just say, oh, look, here's another thing that's happening. How do I want to handle it?
And one of the things that you may be in a place where you're so in it, right? To where
Mm-hmm.
maybe the only thing you can do is just go and be by yourself. Because sometimes that's all you can do. Like, it's, you just need to, um and maybe you don't know how to deal with whatever's coming up or whatever's going on. But if you just go be by yourself, like I had one of my kids this morning was he was clearly, his nervous system was hijacked and he was projecting, right? That's what we do. Like, it's about the other
What
people,
did
right?
that look like? What did that look like?
So so this particular kid this morning decided to pick an old pattern that he has with his brother, and then he played the victim role. Well, Timmy did this and this and this, and it's like, okay, maybe true, may not be true. But then I was like, you know what? Maybe you guys just. So I've learned, like, just go in your own spaces right now and deal with whatever you've got going on with that. So you're not triggering each other's stuff, right? Because that's what happens. And then then it was only a matter of time. Then he starts going after me, and I was like, and I've done enough work that I don't need to participate. And I'm like, do you need a hug, honey? And he's like,
Yeah, do
because
you want a
I'm
snack?
trying to sit there and just like full neutrality, right? And then when
Yeah.
that one didn't work, so when I separated him with the first kid, and then when I was just gonna give him a hug and kept holding the space, and trust me, the words out of his mouth, he was trying to provoke the bejesus out of me, right? And
Everything
then
they can
he
come up
went
with
to
because they're
sibling
not in their
number.
right mind. Yeah.
Right. Well, he's in his nervous system is hijacked, right? For whatever reason. And
Hmm.
there's no particular reason why. It could, whatever. And
Maybe
so
because he
then,
woke up and he had cortisol in his system.
right. Well, and then he went after the next sibling. And I looked at the other sibling and I said, this is called a projection. I said, if you could just send him lots of love and don't personalize. This is one of the things I got from the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Um, don't personalize anything that comes out of somebody else's mouth, because it's about what's going on inside of them. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And
But it's so hard to remember that when your body is telling you you need to start swinging.
right. So this other child, she sat there and she was like, and she's the one I think that has the most space out of all the kids right now. And she she looked at me and she goes, "But mom, those are my toys." And I go, "I know. He's just trying to poke the bear." I go, "Can you just say, 'I love you,' and just like blow him a kiss?" And she did, and then she wouldn't play. And then the one who was doing all this was just like, ugh. And then he just started crying. I go,
Yeah.
"Michael, I need you to just be with your own feelings and feel whatever's going on inside you, to let it come up and out so you can feel it." And he did. He unpacked it 3 blocks from school. And then it was all over and done. And I'm like going, oh my God. But I'm so grateful that I now have I have the space, right? And I started to realize that when I watched this one client of mine, her daughter would come over with the grandkids, and the grandkids were teenagers at the time, and they all just scream at each other. Like there's no communication. It's all screaming. And so I'm sitting in this, woman's home who's in her 80s, because it's the only person I actually go to her house still because she's old. And I'm watching this and I'm going, I've done enough of this work with you that I'm like going, oh wow. Oh wow. And I'm just watching the dynamics. I'm going, I don't want to scream anymore. Like I don't like this was years ago and I was going, I don't want to do that. And so in this whole process trying to find out, okay, well what causes me as a parent to want to start to scream? And it's because family members know how to poke the bear. You know how to poke each other's buttons. And I'm like going, so then I just started verbalizing it like, okay, I know you're trying to insult me right now and you're trying to provoke me, but I'm not going there with you, honey. Like this is something going on inside yourself. And some days I was good at it and some days I wasn't so good at it. And I'm like going, we're all learning, we're all growing, and we're breaking generational patterns here. And
Right.
so it's gotten to a place now where sometimes some of my kids have more space to hold it with the other kids. And sometimes, they hold it for me, like, because it's this dynamic. And the fact that I could sit there in the car and all of the other kids then allowed this other one to just be in whatever feelings he wasn't feeling. So, it's just super important, I think, to be able to just create the space inside yourself. I think that's number 1 through 50 ways of how to leave your lover. Right?
It's yeah. And it's very interesting because people avoid doing healing work or self-care work because they're worried it's going to make them have a breakdown.
Yeah,
That if they start to let down, that everything's going to fall apart because they're barely keeping
exactly.
it together. So they have to keep it together at all costs. And what I like to tell people is you don't have to have a breakdown to start letting go of these things. I
Yeah.
used to, when I would get triggered, I'd sob and sob and sob and sob.
I couldn't resist.
Exactly.
Said, don't need to be coy, Roy.
Oh, Roy.
Just so on the buzz, Gus. Don't need to discuss
Don't need to discuss much.
much.
I love that
And
song.
set yourself free.
Oh, so free.
So it's about setting yourself free, right?
Always, always. Yes. And so I do my meditation every day and I listen to my brainwave entrainment music. And instead of sobbing, my body just shakes a little, lets
Yeah,
go of whatever I'm stressed out about, and then it's gone. And
right.
and I smell my essential oils and I eat some chocolate and I pull some tarot cards. Self-care can look like that. It doesn't have to look like, a meltdown in the middle of the grocery store.
Right.
If you ignore it, it's going to be a meltdown in the middle of the grocery store. But if you stay on top of it, it's just going to be like your body releases stress and energy without bothering anybody.
Well, and I learned years ago that emotions are just unmet needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when I would have a kid who's just totally like having a meltdown, I'm like, sweetheart, what do you need? Like, an emotion is an unmet need. How can I help? How can I support you? How can I? And then they look at me like, huh? And so now it's like a natural thing in our house. Like, well, when one of them's having something going on, like, well, what do you need? Like, if we start to recognize that emotions are really just unmet needs, and we can recognize going when we're having our own emotions, well, what needs of my own am I not meeting because I'm having these emotions? Because
Yes,
I've
stop
really tried to
pointing
get to a place that
fingers.
I want to be in a relationship with somebody, but I don't need to be in a relationship with somebody. There's a big
Right,
difference there. And it
right.
wasn't until I fulfilled my own needs, then that's when a new relationship works. Because you're not
Exactly.
depending on the other person for your happiness.
Yes, you're detached from it. You're taking care of yourself like an adult does, and you're able to come at it as an equal.
So true. Rita, I love you. You're
I love you
amazing.
too. Thank you. You're pretty amazing too. You're pretty
So
spiritually
get off
gifted
the bus,
yourself.
Gus. No. So
Yeah,
Rita, how
don't
do people
stop,
find you?
They go to ritahickmancoaching.com or they type in Rita Hickman on Facebook or YouTube and you'll find me. I've been around for many years doing this stuff for a while. And if you're local, they can come in and get body work to support the coaching that I do, which is powerful. So if they're in the Chicagoland area, and if they're not, I help them set up their own practice, for themselves of spiritual nourishment so that they can break this pattern of addiction.
Totally. Good stuff. And by all means, everybody, I'm still giving my Awaken Your Wealth book for free. There's a link right below me there. And if anyone is interested in individual consultations, you can email info@jmcwealth.com because we work things out or we act it out through our money, through our health, and through our relationships. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for another week. Bye.
Bye.